Good morning. Well, I hate to break it to you, but the best part of the service is over. My sermon, the message of my sermon will not probably compare to that. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Randy. You know, I often say, I'd be lost without my spouse. And sometimes God has to prove it. This weekend, my wife is away on a ladies' retreat. And she took Leah, thankfully. But she decided to leave a child. And so Luke and I had a father-son day. And, in your mind, you're all excited. But at the same time, you don't realize that your son's going to get sick and throw up 9 times and all those fun things that I've been dealing with the last 2 days. And what's interesting is, as guys, maybe it could be just me. You call, what do I do? I know he's sick, but what do I do? I know, okay, God, I gave him this, and this, and it's one of those. Let me know where I'm wrong so I can go back and fix it. And then last night, as I've been dealing the last 2 nights with a sick child, during one of the morning hour get-up, they kind of all went together. I heard something like scratching at the door, and I'm like, what is that noise? It's just like not a noise you normally hear at my house. And it got me so much. When you hear a noise and you can't go back to sleep till you find out what it is? That was one of those noises, and so 5:50 this morning, I'm sitting on the steps. Like, you got to be kidding me. Just sitting there, say, I got to figure out what this noise is. I knew it wasn't in my room, so I was like, it isn't Luke. He was fast asleep for once. And so I'm sitting there wondering what it is, and I realized it was coming from the front door because I let the dog out, and I forgot to let him back in. So my dog, Tyson, enjoyed the neighborhood. It was a nice night to roam the neighborhood, I thought. And so he probably had a fun time. And then this morning, I go to leave, and my mom, thankfully, is watching Luke while he's kind of feeling better. And, of course, he's fine now when Grandma shows up. She's like, what's wrong? I said, anyway. And so I walk out the door, and I forget my iPad, so I'm preaching from paper. And it's just one of those things where would we be without our spouses? And while it's kind of a funny story, it also makes me think just those few little things. It makes me also say, just kind of mirroring what all the songs we've sung today is, where would we be without our Jesus? I mean, those little things, they're funny. We laugh at things, or I make mistakes constantly. But where would we be? I mean, to make it so much more serious, where would I be without my Jesus? I'm so excited to be back with you this morning. It's been a few weeks since we've looked at our current study. This morning, we're continuing our series titled, The Redemption Story. The Redemption Story. It's a series we're taking several weeks, maybe even a few months, looking at the big picture, the main agenda, the overall purpose of the entire Bible. Often we'll look at just one book of the Bible. Often we'll look at this topic, that topic. But what we're doing over the last few weeks and the next few weeks is we are looking at the grand themes found from Genesis to Revelation, the entire Bible. We've already seen a biblical creation. We've already seen a devastating fall, a worldwide flood, a crucial covenant. In the first 4 weeks of this study, we've already covered 2,400 years. I don't know if you knew that the book of Genesis covers more time, more years, than all the other books of the Bible combined. The book of Genesis, we've already seen the creation of the world. We've seen sin through Adam and Eve enter the world. We've seen the godly lives of Noah, Abraham. We've seen other men that we kind of skimmed through, men like Jacob and Isaac. And today we're going to begin our fifth main point, our main topic of the redemption story. And that today we're going to be looking at is the mission of Moses. The mission of Moses. Somehow today we're going to take the life of Moses and put it into one sermon, which really isn't possible, but we're going to do our best today to do that. Moses, no doubt in my mind, was the greatest man in the Old Testament. Moses heard the voice of God there at the burning bush. Moses heard the voice of God when receiving the 10 Commandments there on the top of Mount Sinai. Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. Moses led the children of Israel out of captivity, out of slavery from Egypt. So you have to wonder, as I do, why was God able to use Moses so effectively? What was so great about this man named Moses? What did Moses have that was so important in his life? And the answer to that question, I believe all of them, is so simple. And the answer to what he has that we should desire is that Moses was a man of faith. Moses was a man of faith. He had a life-changing, a life-altering faith. I wonder if I have that. I wonder if we have that today. This morning, I ask that you join with me in standing as we read our scriptures. This morning, we're going to be reading from the faith chapter. There's a faith chapter in the Bible known as Hebrews 11. We're going to be looking at Hebrews chapter 11, verses 24 through 28. It says this, it says, by faith, Moses, when he became of age, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he looked to the reward. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. By faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, lest he who destroyed the firstborn should touch them. By faith they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land, whereas the Egyptians, attempting to do so, were drowned. Thank you. You may be seated. If you remember 3 weeks ago, the last time we talked about this topic, we talked about Abraham. Abraham is known as the physical father of God's people. And while Abraham is the physical father of the Israelites, the physical father of God's people, Moses is the one who brings them to God. Moses is the lawgiver. Moses is the nation builder. But you see, it's not just his brilliance that makes him so important to the redemption story. Makes him so pivotal to the redemption story. It is this man's faith. Listen to Deuteronomy 34, 10 through 12. Deuteronomy 34, 10 through 12 says this. Listen to these accolades given to Moses. It says, since then no prophet has risen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, who did all those miraculous signs and wonders the Lord sent him to do in Israel, to Pharaoh, to all of his officials, and to this whole land. For no one has ever shown the mighty power or performed the awesome deeds that Moses did in the sight of all Israel. That's impressive. God gave Moses 120 years, and in those 120 years, this man was known as the Prince of Egypt. He was known as the shepherd of the desert. He was the deliverer of God's people. And this morning, we're going to look at 4 points. We're going to look at 4 keys, 4 qualities that come from Moses' faith. And they're going to challenge us. They're going to challenge me as we walk out of this place today saying, do I have that faith? Is my faith that strong? And we begin with the truth that by faith, Moses chose a new identity. By faith, Moses chose a new identity. I wonder, do you remember the story? God's people, the Israelites, were slaves to the Egyptians. Pharaoh made a law that would kill any and all newborn baby boys. Moses was born. And so Moses' mother did what I would assume any mother would try to do, try to hide that child, hide that baby boy. But Moses began to grow, getting bigger and bigger. She couldn't hide him anymore. What was she to do? And she picked up that baby, and I having an 8-month-old, I can't really fathom that. Picked up that baby, one final kiss, and put him in that basket. Sent him down the river. I really can't fathom. I'm almost getting choked up just thinking about that. Can you imagine that? Send him down the river. But in God's amazing sovereignty, who is it that picks that baby up? If you keep reading in Exodus chapter 2, verse 6, who is it that picks him out of the river? No one other than Pharaoh's daughter. She's the one who adopted it. She's the one who called his name Moses. Moses was adopted into the Egyptian royal family. He could have spent the rest of his life pampered in luxury. Lived it up, eating the best foods known to man. Sounds good. That would have tempted me. But what did Moses do? How did he handle that situation? He deliberately turned his back on the Egyptian way of life. Exodus chapter 2 says that one day Moses was hanging out with the Israelites, and one of them was being mistreated by one of the Egyptian masters. Moses is in a situation. What is he to do? He can turn his back and walk away, let the Egyptian, even though what he's doing is wrong, and just let him do it. Or he can do something about it. He did something about it, but of course he went too far, if you know the story. In one quick strike, Moses kills that Egyptian master. He quickly buries him in the sand. Maybe nobody saw what happened, burying him very quick, thinking that no one saw what happened. Maybe his crime wasn't public knowledge. But then you keep reading, Exodus chapter 2, 13 to 15, it says this, then the next day he went out and saw two Hebrews fighting. He asked the one in the wrong, "Why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew?" The man says, "Who are you? Who made you the ruler and judge over us? Are you going to kill us just like you killed the Egyptian?" Moses was afraid and thought, "What I did must have become known." When Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian. Moses realized, okay, everybody knows what's going on. Now Pharaoh's trying to kill me, so he's gone. For years, he was gone in the desert, walking the desert alone. There, years later in Midian, Moses one day was doing his job, watching sheep, when all of a sudden, he sees a bush that's on fire. But it wasn't any normal. We've all seen probably a bush on fire, I'm sure, somehow. And he sees this bush on fire, but it's not being consumed. It's not being burnt up. Any one of us would be like, what in the world's going on? We'd want to get closer to see what is happening there. So Moses continues to walk towards that bush. And instantly, he realizes something's different. Instantly, he hears something we all long to hear. He hears the voice of God. Moses. Can you picture that? Hearing the voice of God. Moses, don't come any closer because you are on holy ground. God proceeds to give him a task, a job, a calling. Says, Moses, I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. For 430 years, the Israelites were slaves. And now Moses is the one that God called. After all those years, Moses is the one. Moses is the man that God used to rescue his people. Moses was humble, though. Exodus 3:11, he says, well, who am I? Who am I that I should be the one to go rescue them? So God encourages him. And Moses obeys God. So instantly, within a second, instantly, God has given Moses now a new identity. God has given Moses a calling. He's giving him a task to complete. He has given him a new purpose in life. He has rejected all the other identities that Satan has tried to lure him with. And now he's faithfully followed God's calling. Faithfully followed God's identity for his life. Do you know, as Christians, we are identified through Jesus Christ. You as a Christian man, you as a Christian woman, you are identified through Christ. You know what that means? That means now you and I, we are not defined by our feelings. We are not defined by the opinions of others. We are not defined by our circumstances. We are not defined by our money. We're not defined by our possessions. We are defined by one, and that is God. We find our identity in Jesus Christ. So now when somebody comes up to you and calls you worthless, when somebody comes up to you and says you are useless, you can know that's a lie. You can know that's wrong. Why? Because you're identified with Christ. You are his precious child. You are a creation of God Almighty. Amen. Moses turned from the pursuits of the pleasures of sin, which is what Exodus says, was what Hebrews says, I should say. He left the treasures of Egypt to walk with God and seek treasures far greater there in heaven. By faith, Moses chose a new identity. Second, by faith, he chose to obey the true God. As the adopted son of Pharaoh's daughter, Moses was taught the religion of Egypt. You know anything about that? In the eyes of the Egyptians, Pharaoh is God. What he says goes. So Moses was taught, Moses was trained to worship Pharaoh. He was taught, he was trained to worship what would be his step-grandfather. But as Moses grew, he wanted more, didn't he? From spending time with his own people, spending time with the Israelites, he learned about Abraham, he learned about Isaac, he learned about Jacob. The Spirit was stirring in his heart. He knew there had to have been more than this, than just worshiping his step-grandfather. He began to seek and know the true God. Every one of us in this room, if you're a brother or sister in Christ, you have experienced this. You've experienced a moment in your life when you screamed out. Maybe literally, maybe figuratively. You screamed out, there has to be more than this. Am I really here just to barely make ends meet? To struggle through life? Am I really here just to try and have fun, to get a bigger house, to get a better car? There has to be more than life. There has to be more than this to life. So what did Moses do? He rejected the gods. He rejected the viewpoint of Egypt. And like many of us then, he still made the mistake, and then he started to serve self. I've done that before. I don't know if you have, where you then saying, well, I'll replace this sin with myself on that platform. He thought he then personally could achieve great things by his own power, his own strength. He took matters into his own hands, ended up killing someone, like we just said a moment ago. His pride led to years and years and years in the desert alone. But thankfully, just picture him year after year in the desert wandering. But thankfully, God pursued Moses. And thankfully for us, God still pursues us, doesn't he? You know, one of my favorite authors is A.W. Tozer. He writes an entire book on this topic. The book is titled God's Pursuit of Man. The book is all about God relentlessly pursuing you and me as sinners. God pursues us just as he did Moses. Moses heard the voice of God, and since that moment he heard God's voice, he was spoken to there at that burning bush. There in Exodus chapter 3, his life was never the same. He constantly hungered, desired more and more of God. That doesn't mean he didn't make mistakes. That didn't mean he didn't sin. But he still wanted more and more of God. His life was a never-ending quest to receive more of Jesus. And I wonder if I can ask you this bold question, where are you spiritually? Where are we spiritually? Are we still serving the gods of Egypt? Now, we may not put it in that word choice today. We can call them the gods of our culture. Is your God named money? Is your God named family? Is your God named sports? A lot of people say they love God, don't they? I think the last time I checked, 86% of people in our world, maybe it's our country, say they believe in God. But a lot of people say they love God. A lot of people say they worship God. But then somehow, all of our efforts, all of our time, all of our dedication seems to go over here, or it seems to go over here. You know, you talk to somebody, oh yeah, I love God. I worship God, I love him. Well, wait a minute, what do you mean, how do I spend my time? What do you mean, how's my prayer life? What do you mean, how much time do I spend in the Word? Well, I don't have time for those things, but I love God. I don't have time for any of that, but I worship him. In Jeremiah 29, Jeremiah is writing a letter to the church leaders, the elders there in Babylon. And he says this, he says, if you look for me wholeheartedly, the key verse is the whole phrase, if you look for me wholeheartedly, you will find me. I will be found by you, says the Lord. You see, by faith, Moses found God. He knew him personally. He was all in. Maybe you're one of those people when you go swimming that, you know, you're one of these people where you creep in inch. I think you're insane if you are one of those people that you go in slowly but surely. You know, the water level gets higher and higher. Or you're like me. You're like the kids where you just jump in. You know, get it all over at once. You know, with Jesus Christ, there is no such thing as inch by inch. You're either all in or you're all out. So I wonder, are you like Moses? Are you all in? Did you jump in the pool? Do you realize that God wants all of you? Will we serve him today? Will we give him the love? Will we give him the dedication that he alone deserves? I don't deserve it. He deserves it. Thirdly, we learn that by faith, Moses set out for a new home. Moses knew that palace, that wasn't his real home. He knew that wasn't where he was called to go. He spent 80 years trying to enter the promised land with the Egyptians. Over and over again, he was detoured by the decisions of these people. He was detoured by the decisions of those people. He missed the plan that God had for him more than once, as I'm sure we all can say. He eventually led the Israelites to the promised land. But now, because of this man's sin, because of the mistakes of sin in his life, he wasn't allowed to enter, was he? He could stand there at the very top of Mount Nebo, I believe it was, and he could see it in the distance. He could see the beauty of the promised land. But he never entered, did he? God didn't allow him to enter. It was Joshua who would lead them into the promised land. He could only see it. But while he couldn't enter the promised land, the arms were wide open when he entered the promised land, being heaven. You know, I love the story of Moses because it is so real. This story is so real. It's so authentic. Moses never pretends to be a great man. In fact, he spends verse after verse, you'll see Moses saying, I can't be used by God. He's worrying that he's not good enough. Over and over again, you see him play the humility card over and over again, saying, well, you can't use me, God. Look at me. You can't use me. But through all of his ups and downs, through all of his mistakes, through all of his disobedience, God used this man mightily. Now, he paid the price, didn't he? He wasn't going to enter into the promised land. But like I said, he entered a place far greater, the promised land, the land of heaven. So I wonder, do you know today what is your ultimate destination? Do you know today that heaven is in the future? Do you have heaven in your sights today? When I was younger, it seemed to me that people talk more about heaven than they do now. I remember some of the songs, one of them was just sang beautifully. Songs like, when we all get to heaven. Heaven is sounding sweeter all the time. My grandmother's favorite song was When the Roll is Called Up Yonder. Maybe you remember or know some of those songs. It's interesting. Songs like that, even songs that are sung today, they remind us that we are foreigners in this land. That we are not home yet. Billy Graham once said this. He said, my home is in heaven. I'm just passing through this world. Theologian George Whitefield once said, how sweet is rest after fatigue? How sweet will heaven be when our journey is ended? Two great quotes. I don't know about you, but just like I said, the title of that song, heaven is sounding sweeter all the time. Amen? Think about this. No sickness, no broken relationships, no cruelty, no death, no sorrow, no worry, no tear, no pain, and on we go. None of those things will be in heaven. So do you and I really, as brothers and sisters in Christ, are we really living a life that is focused on our Savior, that is focused on our new home, our home in heaven? By faith, Moses chose a new identity. By faith, Moses obeyed the true God. By faith, Moses set out for his new home. And finally, this morning, by faith, Moses trusted in God's grace. Moses trusted in God's grace. Let me read our last verse again. I read before. Our passage is Hebrews 11, 24 to 28. 28, the last verse says this. It says, it was by faith that Moses commanded the people of Israel to keep the Passover and to sprinkle blood on the doorpost so that the angel of death would not kill their firstborn sons. If you're familiar of this story, the story of the Exodus, you'll remember the awful plagues that God put on Egypt in order to get Pharaoh to set the Israelites free. God, through each plague, showed his superiority, his seniority. He used plagues of frogs, hail, locusts, darkness, and on it goes. Each of these plagues, they brought misery onto the Egyptians. But Pharaoh was stubborn, wasn't he? He refused to give in to God. Finally, after about a year of the plagues, trying to soften Pharaoh's hardened heart, God told Moses he was going to send a plague of death across Egypt. The firstborn son of every household would die except for those homes where the blood of the sacrificial lamb was on the doorposts. Exodus chapter 12 tells the story. Tells about how the Israelites, if they would spread that innocent blood on the doorposts, that would be the sign for the angel to pass over their house. But let's be honest, the first time you heard this story, maybe it's today, maybe it's years ago, the first time you hear this story, it sounds a little bit ridiculous, right? Let me get this straight. How can killing this innocent animal and then somehow putting its blood on the door frame, that's supposed to protect us? That's supposed to keep us safe? But you see, that's what God told Moses to do, isn't it? And that's what Moses told others to do. And because of their belief, because of their faith, they were spared. Can you picture that morning to wake up to the screaming of mothers and fathers losing their infants? I can't fathom that. To wake up and hear screaming everywhere. But then to go in because of your faith in Jesus Christ, because of your faith in God, to see your little one happy, still alive. You see, Tabernacle, Jesus Christ is, was, and will forever be our Passover lamb. Amen. You see, his life was given for us. His blood, just like the innocent lamb, that lamb did nothing wrong, but innocent blood had to have been spilt there, and it had to be spilt there. And it was spilt for you, for me, for sinners like us. Paid a price that not one of us could ever pay. Moses, through his faith, he believed in God, and through his faith, he led thousands of people to believe in him. The faith of Moses called him to find a new identity, to obey God, to set out for a new home, and then finally to find grace in God. You know, Moses was a child of a slave, yet he was the son of a princess. He was born in basically a hut, but he grew up in a palace. He inherited extreme poverty, yet enjoyed great wealth. He was taught to be a man of the law, but he did his best work in a desert. He was the mightiest of warriors, yet the meekest of men. Moses possessed the wisdom of this world, yet he had the faith of a little child. His funeral was not attended by one single human being, but the creator of the world himself was there. His death was not a big deal here on earth, but it was a huge party in heaven. This man saw the miracle of the parting of the Red Sea. He saw the fingertip of God write the 10 Commandments. He saw a bush on fire that was not being consumed or burned. This man, I believe on more than one occasion, has dropped his staff and saw it turn into a snake. And we're just scratching the surface, aren't we? Moses was a man of great faith. He made mistakes. He was a man who sinned, so don't forget that. But God used those things to turn him into a man of great faith. His influences are so mighty, they are seen in our world today. So I close with a very simple question for all of us. And that is, after looking at this man's faith, skimming the surface of this great man's faith, my question for us is, how does our faith look today? What does it take to sidetrack us today? Sadly, it doesn't take much for me. How is your faith today? Is it strong? Or is it something that one bad accident, one bad problem quickly can make you lose faith? Like I said before, our faith isn't based on circumstances. Our faith isn't based on anything except Jesus Christ. And that's the one thing that will never, never, never change. He was there yesterday. He's there right now for you. And he'll be there tomorrow. When mom and dad aren't there, when your grandparents aren't there, when people lie, the people who are the closest to you in your circle, your inner circle, when those people lie and cheat you, he'll still be there. Let us pray. Father, this morning we come to you thankful for the faith of this man, Moses, Father. What a challenge, what a testimony. These pages still scream out today. Father, I pray that you have used this time. I pray that you have used this man's legacy to challenge us, Father. When the good times are here, when the tough times come, Father, that our faith will not waver. That we will yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and forever rely on you. And when things go wrong and we do not understand and we cry out to you, Father, let us remember that you are still there. You are still on your throne, Father. It's in your beautiful, it's in your holy name that we pray. Amen.